All right, so welcome to this class, which is the common information security threats, and we are going to be looking at the different security threats, and we're going to be trying to understand what these threats are. So yesterday we looked at network basics and the common network devices, and today we want to look at information security threats. So information systems are often vulnerable, and vulnerable, it means that they sometimes have a weakness, right? They have a weakness and have sensitive, confidential information that needs to be communicated. Therefore, they are always under threat in various scenarios and through various means. So this class uses some of these case studies about common attacks to introduce possible threats to the information systems. So upon completion of this course, you'll be able to categorize information security threats. You'll be able to describe common information security threats means, and we are going to see the different categories later on in the next few slides. But basically, this particular course looks at these threats. So when someone says a threat, what comes to your mind? We looked at this previously, but maybe if I could also throw the question back to you again. When I say a threat, what comes to your mind?
I can try.
Yes, please go ahead and try.
I can try.
Yes, try.
Yes, please go ahead.
Threat is. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Sorry. A threat is something that's harmful, or a threat is something that's a danger. Harmful, or.
Okay. Someone is saying a threat is something that is harmful or a danger. That is correct. I will move forward because there's an echo. I hope I am audible enough because the echoes are kind of somehow scaring me. So we have had endless security incidences, and even up to today, we are still getting security threats and incidences. So these are some of the, a few case studies that Huawei felt important to put in this document, and maybe we can just go through them briefly. So usually people attack through malicious code. People write code, specifically a malicious code, so that they're able to attack the network. So on May 12th, 2021, 2017, the WannaCry ransomware, we talked about it, attack broke out at the 8 p.m. and spread worldwide. Computers were infected with the WannaCry, were vulnerable with WannaCry, and they were vulnerable to attacks once that malicious code penetrated onto your computer. They were able to, encrypt people's databases, projects, and they were able to lock them out, only to display a message to them that if they want to gain access to their computers, they have to pay that ransomware. So in 2017, people use also communication process hijacking. That's like how we can be in Zoom and people, come and hijack our class and they take over it and they're able to, disrupt our information. So in 2017, the traffic of users of multiple software applications in China was hijacked during a software upgrade. The users thought they were upgrading the software while they were actually installing viruses. So someone says, hey, you know what, your Windows operating system is out of date. Kindly update your operating system so that you can get recent security patches and updates. And you go ahead, and it sounds interesting, you install the the updates, only not knowing that you are actually installing viruses on your computer. There's also personal information breach. These are just some of the instances, and we're just looking at them. So they are saying that more than 90% of telecommunication fraud is usually targeted, conducted using precise information of citizens. You will all agree with me, most of these fraudsters who call you with all your information. Someone calls you, hey, good morning, Tendo. How are you, Tendo? Are you doing okay? How was today's class, the security class, the one you're doing? How is work? Did you go to, let's say you work from MTN, how did you go to MTN? Hey, yes, who is this? Because someone brings the precise information about you, so there's a way it instills confidence in you, and you, at the back of your mind as a human being, you start assuming that this kind of person knows you exactly. Who has ever been called by someone and they know you and they speak, they call you by your name, even while you're working, but yet in actual sense, after you driving down that phone call, you realize that this is a fraudster? Has it ever happened to any of us on this forum?
Yes.
Yes.
What happened? What happened to you? You can share with us.
For me, one day I was sleeping and a phone call came in at 7 a.m. telling me, yeah, I've sent you some money. Just please send it back to me. So he sent me a message for M-Pesa. So I woke up and looked and said, wait. Aren't M-Pesa supposed to return the money? He said, no, they've closed the M-Pesa. I told him, stop playing with me. Then he was like, I'm sorry. He hung up.
Interesting. All right. Anyone else with another experience? Someone is saying in the chat that someone called them and claiming that they won a promotion. That is from Nathan Timothy. All right. So here we're also looking at we are looking at the distributed denial service attack, and we are saying that in February 2018, the popular online game, the Final Fantasy, suffered a 3-hour distributed denial of service attack. So what these guys did, also another case study, these guys attacked this game and they made sure that no one is able to access it. There are people on the network, they try their level best to, feed your server with a lot of information so that they, at the end of the day, you are unable to access your services. Also in November around 2016, there were 5 major Russian banks that suffered from the distributed denial of service attack, lasting for nearly 2 days. And that is a lot of time for banking, you know that. And you know the amount of money that banks can lose for being, for their services being inaccessible for over 48 hours. In 2017, the traffic users of multiple softwares, applications in China were hijacked. Okay, we talked about this already, so let us move to the next slide. So, beginning of the cyber war. I don't know if anyone heard of Stuxnet. Who has heard of Stuxnet? If there's no one who has heard of Stuxnet, in February 2011, Iran suddenly announced that it was going to unload fuel from its first nuclear power station. Previously, the industry said that Iran needed only 1 year to be capable of quickly creating nuclear weapons. However, with this Stuxnet attack, it ruined 5 of the centrifuges of Iran, postponing the research for at least 2 years, during which time the global landscape changed. So what this guy did, they understood that we don't want Iran to produce nuclear weapons. What do? Let us find a way of accessing and corrupting their systems. This was a computer worm, but which computer worm was very tricky to identify. Once it infects your computer, it stays on your computer and it stays silent. And it looks for also any other mode of communication, whether USB or Ethernet or email, and it will also replicate itself and it will be transferred to other computers until when it looks for any computer that is of interest to it. Any computers which have programmable logical commands, and it will be able to infect those computers so that it affects these centrifuges, so that Iran is not able to complete its targeted objective of being able to have its nuclear, ready in 1 year, right? So, but this attack, it exploited mobile media to implant viruses. So even the people who used to, work for Iran, even their mobile devices were attacked. Also, the worm was capable of targeted attack on physical energy infrastructure facilities. As long as any device is electronic, this was a kind of worm which could also affect hardware in a sense. As long as your hardware has some kind of programmable logic, it would go ahead and install itself on that program. It would listen, find out which those devices are, and then it goes ahead and slows the program. At the end of the day, your project would be, delayed. So it also employed multiple attack means. So it was hard to know because it was attacking in different ways. It could also be serious. You'd work normally, but at the end of the day, your hardware is malfunctioning. Let's say your power plant is malfunctioning and you don't know what could be the reason why it is malfunctioning. By the end of the day, it's malfunctioning. So it infected over 45,000 networks worldwide. But mostly Iran is the country which suffered a lot with this Stuxnet kind of attack. Moving forward, the evolution of security attacks, we see that forms of attack largely unchanged, right? Current attackers still use viruses. We all agree. They still use phishing. Who knows what phishing is? Anyone?
Playing with someone's mind, maybe pick information, crucial information from someone, and then they use it against them. As you said earlier, someone can call you pretending to be someone you know, but when they picked information and then they use it against you.
Okay, so to target the weaknesses in our system or the vulnerabilities are much the same time as in the past. So even in the past, it used to be this current trend, but even today, still people are using that kind of trend. But then there's more sophisticated attack means. So a major attack usually requires sophisticated deployment, long-term incubation, and a combination of multiple attack methods to achieve the ultimate goal. So they'll keep on, trying different things. They'll try this, and for them, they're patient. It will take them some time. It's a long-term goal. They'll get onto your network. They will spoof your packets. They will sniff your packets. They will try and understand what exactly is taking place. And of course, they will have different types or methods of how they are going to attack you. So of course, it is diverse attack purposes. The attack targets range from targeting personal computers to being used to influence economy, sometimes politics, sometimes war, sometimes energy, and even the global landscape. So these are the security threats categories, and I also want to draw your attention to these. We are seeing we have threats to cybersecurity, we have threats to application security, and we also have threats to data transmission and device security. Now let us look at threats to cybersecurity. We have like distributed denial of service attacks. We have network intrusion. Yes. Under the threats to application security, we have always vulnerabilities. These are the weaknesses in your operating systems. We also have viruses such as Trojan horses and worms. We have, of course, phishing websites, like that website which our colleague shared on our WhatsApp group are telling us about the WhatsApp anniversary, right? Those websites are intended to, to steal your information, to pretend like they are giving you information or they are giving you something in return. But at the end of the day, those kinds of websites, they are looking out for something. And once you are their target, they'll go ahead and execute the attack, right? And then, of course, we have data breaches. So we understand that data breaches, phishing websites, viruses, and OS vulnerabilities, all these fall under application security. So threats to data transmission and device security. Here we see that we have communication traffic hijacking. We have man in the middle attacks. Yeah, these are transmission. Man in the middle, you have someone who is intercepting your, who is intercepting your packets, and they'll be able to steal your information. Of course, we have unauthorized login onto the system, and of course, weak security protection to our wireless network, because it's transmission. So any attack that can happen when you're transmitting your, when you're transmitting your information from one source to another. So let us look at the threats to network security. The denial, let me go to this page. The distributed denial of service attacks against DINE, against the DNS service in the United States. This is a case, just a case example. So DINE is that this guy, DINE, it is a DNS software as a service, provider who is whose core service is providing managed DNS. We looked at DNS yesterday. Who remembers what DNS is?
The name resolver.
Domain name. Okay.
What does it do?
Domain name service.
What does it do?
Translate IPs into known like names.
Understandable, something that humans can understand.
Something that's humans. It's going to it's going to translate our IP addresses, which would be, imagine whenever you had to visit google.com, you go ahead and type in Google's IP address. Let me just get one of Google's IP address here. We try to ping it so that we can get its IP address, google.com, and I ping it, and just imagine, I think something is up with my network. I'm at the university network, but it has been acting funny. I think that's one of the reasons why I have somehow delayed a bit. Did I type the name correctly? Yeah, I think I just don't have let me see. Wireless 172.16.3. All right. So just imagine whenever, let me just use this example. Whenever you wanted to visit google.com, I'm just giving an example, and you have to go into your web browser and you type in 172.16.0.115, and that is the IP address for Google or the server which is hosting Google. That would be okay. But imagine all the sites you have to visit, Zoom, Facebook, Twitter, and you have to cram those numbers. Hey, Twitter, it is 205.16.0.135. Facebook, it uses 192. It would be typically very hard for us as human beings, right? But it is easy for you to remember Facebook. It is easy for you to remember Google. It's easy for you to remember Twitter, isn't it? So this is the use of our DNS. So like we are saying, DINE is a company in the United States, and it is a software as a service, cloud providing service provider. And basically it provides managed DNS for its users. Yeah. So that the distributed denial of service attack, the DDoS attack, severely affected the DNS services, preventing DINE users from accessing their websites. Because DINE serves many companies, the damage caused spread quickly and causing serious harm. Imagine if more than 100 websites were not accessible due to this attack for as long as 3 hours. Amazon alone suffered a loss of tens of millions of dollars, because Amazon is also one of the clients of this company here. So Amazon itself lost about, tens of millions of dollars, because these guys are making money every minute that passes by. And for you, denying service to them is a big deal. Denying service to their clients for just 1 hour is damage enough for them to suffer to get a hinge and suffer the losses. So we are saying that this was it was a service in the US. It was hit by this attack from about 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. The attack spiralized nearly half the network in the United States. And these large-scale, attacks were launched from bottlenecks formed by Internet of Things devices like your fridges, which are connecting to the internet, or like your TVs, your smartwatches, and all other gadgets that you connect to the internet, which were infected with the Mirai malware. So the zombies launching the attacks mainly consisted of network cameras. They looked at those cameras that are networked, digital hard disk recorders, and also smart routers. So the Mirai bottleneck infected millions of devices, of which only 1/10 were involved in this attack. Currently, the internet has many zombie hosts and bottleneck driven by the desire for, of course, profit or even just denial of service attacks. And this has become a major security threat, not only to the United States, but to the entire world. So they usually focused on cameras, the digital recording, the DVRs, video recordings, and the smart routers and other Internet of Things devices. So process of the wow, my slides are moving. I first, where were we? We're here. So we are saying that the process of okay, we're saying the process of the Mirai attack that look for it looks for zombies. By default, the remote logging function is enabled for Internet of Things devices to facilitate remote management, right? If you have your router somewhere at your facility, you enable remote login, or even your server somewhere in your data center, and you have your devices like your DVRs, you enable remote login. In case anything happens, you can remotely log into that device while seated in your office space, or even some people, they do so even while they are working from home. So it is remote login is very useful for network administrators, but also these guys were focusing on that. So an attacker can scan an IP address or IP addresses to discover some of those devices that are live, on the network, and which are then scanned for open telnet ports. So if there are any devices and they are connected to the internet and they had open ports, these guys would go ahead and scan for those telnet ports. So the scan for open telnet port service ports was usually done to see if port 23 was open or 2323, depending on your network, was open. So they look for zombies. The other one was to build a bottleneck. So when they are building the bottleneck, some Internet of Things devices, the IoT devices, users use the default password directly or set a simple password. They don't want to remember hard passwords, so they decide to set a simple password. A simple combination of username and digits, such as maybe admin and admin 12345. And this is easily cracked, right? So for their devices, these passwords are easily cracked by an attacker through brute force. You can use a brute force attack. And if time allows, we shall try and have a practical aspects of some of these attacks. This course is purely focused on a defensive side as opposed to an offensive side. But these guys are saying they build a bottleneck and they look for some of those devices that have default, passwords or weak or simple passwords. So after using the brute force attack, successfully cracking the password to the device and logging in to it through Telnet, the attacker remotely implants the malware into the device to obtain absolute control of the device, and they can use whatever they want to do with it. So they crack the passwords, those weak passwords, through brute force, and also implant the malware into the devices for remote control. Who has ever bought a MiFi here on this forum? Anyone who has ever bought a MiFi? From your service provider?
I have ever.
Okay. All right. Quite a number of people. Apart from changing your, Wi-Fi passwords and settings, did you take off some time to also go ahead and change your back-end admin configuration details?
Yes, I did change the user. You change the password, only that the Wi-Fi I had was limited in characters, so it was funny,
Okay.
but I was able to change the admin password, the security method.
Okay. It is good that most of the people, that is some of the first things they do. But you agree with me that most of the people, when they buy them, of course, they don't want you to tap their data. They'll go ahead and change their SSID and they change it to whatever name they want, and then go ahead and also set their favorite password, right? But they will not focus so much in going back to the default IP, maybe depending on whatever router you're using, 168.0.1 or .0.0, depending on the router you're using, to go and change this admin. Maybe the username is admin and also the password is admin, right? They never change these details. Some of them even actually don't know. The moment they configured those settings for them and they were, they were happy, they went home and they're using. Most of our parents and uncles, they never change those details. But these devices are on the network and they are connecting and they're using. So these guys, they build a bottleneck basing on such devices and the weak passwords that people do. Most of the people I know that we buy MiFis for, we actually fight with them to actually go ahead and change those back-end, login details. For them, as long as their Wi-Fi is displaying the name they need, and as long as they are able to protect it with their desired passwords, but they're only protecting the Wi-Fi, but they're not protecting the router itself or the MiFi that is giving them, the internet access, isn't it? All right. So here we are saying that they do that, right? So they build a bottleneck. So after obtaining absolute control here, and these guys get access to those devices, those kinds of devices, the infected devices, in addition to using the devices to launch the attacks, the malware can also cause serious damage to the systems, services, and data of these devices. For example, the malware can tamper with the data, steal privacy, and also modify configurations, change your password, log you out of your device, and even delete files to some extent, and may even further cause core service, attack core service systems. And this is very dangerous. So the next thing that these guys use, they use the load attack module. They used to load the DNS, denial of service attack module. And with this module, basically, the attacker loads the DNS DDoS attack module on the device. And after doing that, after launching that denial of service, they have locked you out. You cannot work. You cannot access anything. Everything is slow. You cannot reach out to anything. They finally go ahead and launch their attack. So they launch the attack, and the attacker launches the attack against the DNS service to make sure that you cannot access any site. The DNS service from Dyn in the United States through the botnet that they set, and of course also bringing down hundreds of customer websites. And this is what they used to do. So what means we are used to attack the site? We have looked at those means, but one of them was scanning. What is scanning? Here, scanning is a potential attack action, right? Potential, the keyword is potential attack action. They are just scanning to listen, to find out, is there anything of value to us? It does not directly interrupt network devices. No, your devices will continue working, but they're busy scanning your information. They're busy scanning through your packets to find out if you have any vulnerability in the system. But however, it gathers relevant network information before an attack, before carrying out the attack. So what usually they do a lot of address scanning to find out the addresses on your network. So an attacker sends an ICMP packet to a destination address or uses TCP or UDP packets, we looked at these protocols and now we are seeing how they are being used. So, and also we looked at this and now we are seeing how they're being used. Because remember, when you send an IMCP packet, you're expecting a reply, right? You're expecting a reply from either the host is reachable or it's unreachable, right? So they use
Yes.
these either TCP or UDP packets into to initiate connections with certain IP addresses. So by checking whether they are response packets, the attacker can determine which target systems are alive and then connect to that target network. Yes, they are trying to find out which network is on this, a network. What is a network segment, or how many devices on this network? Maybe what is the IP address of the application server, or maybe that particular printer. So an attacker probes the network structure here when they are scanning the ports. He probes the network structure by scanning ports to identify ports open to the attack target so as to determine the attack mode. The attacker usually uses the port scan software to initiate connection to a service of TCP or UDP ports on a wide range of hosts. So based on the response packets, the attacker can determine whether the host uses the ports to provide services, right? So they used address scanning and port scanning. Let us also looking at spoof attacking. So this is obtaining the control permission. With spoofing, attackers can obtain control permission by brute force cracking of passwords, right? Also, attackers can launch spoofing attacks such as IP spoofing to obtain access and control permissions. IP spoofing. What is IP spoofing? An attacker may send packets with forged source IP addresses to target hosts to obtain superior access and control permission. So with IP spoofing is launched by exploiting the normal trust relationships between hosts. Hosts first trust themselves before they communicate. He sends out an ARP to this guy to find out their MAC addresses after obtaining the IP address at the layer 3 level so that they trust each other. So hosts with IP address-based trust relationships use IP address-based authentication to determine whether to allow or reject access of another host. So between two hosts with a trust relationship, users can log into one host from another host without password verification, right? So the process of IP spoofing attack is as follows. I don't know if it is displayed here. It is not displayed here. It as follows. So one, crash the network where a trusted host resides to launch the attack without resistance. You need to find ways of crashing into the network, right? And after that, connect to a port of the target host to guess the sequency and sequency incremental value. You remember in TCP where we have our three-way handshake, and we say it when it is sending our SYN, it sets the sequence number, right, to a random number. And when this guy is responding, he will make his acknowledgement equal to this guy's sequence number plus 1 as the incremental value. So also these guys are going to tap into that, and they will use the port, like let's say they use the UDP port to target hosts or the TCP port to target hosts to get a sequence and sequence incremental value, and masquerade the source address as address of a trusted host, and then send the data segment with a SYN flag to initiate a connection. So remember, during the TCP connection, before a server accepts or before a client accepts to send you information, right? This is our computer A, this is our computer B. We're going to go through a phase of, three-way handshake. I'm going to first send my SYN. My SYN is going to go with my sequence number set to a random number A, and this guy is going to respond with a SYN plus acknowledgement, right? It's going to respond with a SYN, and it's going to get the acknowledgement. The acknowledgement value is going to be this guy's sequence number plus 1, isn't it? So as he responds back, these guys now tap into this and they masquerade as this, trusted IP address. And instead now they send with this new SIG number that they have got an incremental value. They set it that they send a data segment with a SYN flag to initiate a connection. Once they send that SYN again, lastly saying, that ACK, lastly, I acknowledge I have received your request. So, we can go ahead and communicate together. So this guy will establish the TCP connection based on false hope. So they wait for the target host to send back the SYN ACK packet to compromise the host, and after send the target host with an acknowledgement packet and with a source IP address masqueraded as the address of a trusted host and a sequence number as that expected by the target host +1. After the connection is established, then now this guy can send commands and requests to target the host. And this is how these guys are going to do that. So they will be there, they will listen to you after sniffing. This is a sniffer here. He's busy sniffing what you're sending the packet, he taps it. So after he taps your packet, and for you are communicating with this guy, instead of now sending your SYN, he will get you, he will masquerade to be you, and he will send that SYN data to this guy with your sequence number, and this guy will respond with a SYN plus acknowledgement, and he will go and send the acknowledgement, and this guy will trust him to access his computer or files, and he'll establish the connection. And after establishing the connection, this guy now will use that opportunity to issue out attack commands. So launching a distributed denial of service attack. The distributed denial of service attack is a typical kind of traffic attack. They just want to exhaust your server. They just want to make it get tired. And once our computers reach some kind of threshold or bottleneck, they will simply not perform to your expectations. You have everything lagging and being typically very slow. So in this attack, the attacker exploits resorts or exploits, or the attacker resorts to every possible means to control a large number of online hosts. After getting these hosts, these controlled hosts are called zombie hosts. And the network consisting of the attacker and the zombie host is called a botnet, right? So an attacker launches the attack. Okay, I was reading something from the chat, but it's nothing of my concern. So we're saying that an attacker launches this attack by controlling many zombie hosts and to send out a large number of elaborately constructed attack packets to the attack target. As a result, links are congested and system resources are exhausted on the attack network. This prevents attack from providing services for legitimate user. So this guy is going to get his zombies, what we are calling the botnet, all these controlled computers in the cloud. So this guy is going to get these hosts and is controlling them. And after getting them, he starts them. He uses his server or jump server to start them. And after starting them, he's going to make them, all send out commands to attack target at the same time, basically to control traffic or to attack the traffic. So these attacks usually exhaust our network bandwidth and also exhaust our server resources. And once that is done, people cannot access, the genuine people cannot access. They want to access files, but they're telling them, you know what, boss, our server cannot be reached. Error 504, please, server is down. So server cannot be reached. Or try again later, depending on the error message that you had configured. So the DDoS attacks are divided into different types based on the types of exploited attack packets. Currently, the popular attacks include the SYN flood. They keep sending SYN floods. They send the SYN floods like they're establishing the TCP connection. This guy will send a SYN flood. This guy, after understanding that this guy wants to communicate, communicate with me. He will send back the acknowledgement, but this guy does not respond to that guy. He just keeps quiet. Also, this does the same. This guy is in suspense waiting, and he has opened those ports to make sure he establishes the connections with this guy. This will also do the same. He will flood, and this guy will also flood. This guy is in suspense waiting. This guy is also flood, and he does not have all the resources to keep this guy and other guys and so many other. At the end of the day, the bandwidth is just exhausted on our servers, right? So they also use the UDP flood. They also use the IMCP flood and the HTTP flood and also the DNS flood. So the defense measures for cyber attacks, these are some of the things that you need to look at when you want to protect yourselves from some of those attacks that we have talked about, right? So here, protecting through professional equipment. There are so many professional equipments out there, some of them including firewalls and the anti-distributed denial of service devices. So the firewalls, we have talked about firewalls. By deploying firewalls at the intranet egress of medium and large size enterprises and data centers can efficiently defend against common distributed denial of service attacks and traditional single packet attacks. Also, the anti-DDoS devices. These solutions provide professional anti-distributed denial of service services for carriers, enterprises, data centers, and portal websites, online games, and also online videos and DNS services. Okay. Threats to application security. We have been looking at threats to cybersecurity. Who can tell me some of the threats that we have looked at? In cybersecurity or network security? Okay, someone in the chat is saying DDoS. Very good.
We've looked at load attack method, spoofing. Is it spoofing?
Okay, spoofing. All right, that is good. That is good. So let us look at the application, threats to application security. So worms attack against Weibo. As seen a Weibo, the Chinese Twitter, was once hit by a worm that affected over 30,000 users in less than an hour. The attack process was as follows. The attacker created a user account, infected it with a worm, and sent malicious links to a public section. So this guy exploited the page vulnerability, that he could create an account and he could also use that account to send out malicious links to the public section. Second, he does phishing. We already looked at what phishing is. So users clicked these links with exciting titles and got their accounts infected. Just like on WhatsApp. This guy sent out, it looks interesting, exciting titles, WhatsApp, anniversary they're giving out. They were giving out what? What were they giving out? I don't remember. Okay, so they use
They can even tell you to share so that you can go to heaven.
Okay, they are giving out free data. But in actual sense, this is just a malicious link, and they're just trying to, get your data or, steal your data or infect your accounts. So then after infecting your accounts and after getting to know more about you, they spread the worm. Whoever clicks on the link, the worm goes and indirectly affects their devices. So infected user accounts automatically posted and sent out private messages to their followers. There was an incident, I think last year on Facebook, where so many users sent me messages apologizing you know what? Sandy, I am sorry, I am not the one who sent you those pornographic links. Someone hijacked into my account. Who has also got such incidences?
Me.
You did, eh?
I know of someone also.
You know of someone. Yes. So those people who love clicking links, after them, these guys get access to your account and infect your account. And you end up even posting things that you are even not aware of. So after infected user accounts automatically posted and sent out private messages to their followers. Hey, you did what? Hey, imagine you sent out a private message to your boss and you remember the non-repudiation. Who remembers the non-repudiation that you cannot deny? You just have to swallow and feel bad that you were, exploited. But you cannot tell someone that, you know what, it was not me. Of course, you can tell them you were hacked, but at the end of someone's mind, still it leaves a very bad picture. So take down the website. After they did that, after sending their private messages, they also went ahead and decided to take down the website. Infected messages increased exponentially and infected a large number of user accounts, which forced these guys to eventually take down the website. So that's how severe attacks can be. So threats brought by vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities, we said they are weaknesses in our systems, right? The weaknesses which threats can exploit. So vulnerabilities are defects in the implementation of either hardware or software or protocols or even system security policies. They allow attackers to access or damage systems without authorization. If system vulnerabilities are not fixed in time, the following attacks may occur. You may get an injection. We're going to look at the injection. You may get a cross-site scripting. We're going to look at it. Malicious code propagation, and then also data breach. So the most common means of launching the SQL injection is to construct an elaborate SQL statement and then inject them in the content submitted on web pages. Popular techniques include using comment characters, identical relationships such as, 1 is equal to 1, join queries using union statements, and inserting and tampering with data using insert or update statements. When we get some time, we shall have if time allows, but even if time doesn't allow, we shall have a session to look at some of those offense attacks. But basically, they use some of those queries to have the SQL injection attack. The cross-site scripting, which is the XSS, is a type of code injection attack launched by exploiting security vulnerabilities of website application. It allows malicious users to inject code into websites to compromise users who view the sites. And this type of attacks often involves HTML and client-side scripting languages, right? So SQL and XSS are described in detail for those who want to go ahead and do the professional course, the HCIP security. Those things are there and they're described in detail, right? Just a moment. Just a moment. Okay, they're there and they're described in details. So malicious code propagation and data breach, we looked at it. Someone just writes the malicious code and tries to, propagate it onto our system. Also, entrenching on our data. So looking at the next slide, which is phishing. Phishing, right? As you can see in this diagram, there's our site here. Put on the pen. There's our site. So before accessing our website, check whether its address is an encrypted link starting with HTTPS. It is important. Some people will go ahead and manipulate sites which just start with HTTP. and then you go ahead and for you are seeing you're accessing Huawei.com. In actual sense, someone is phishing your communication. You go and put in your username and you go ahead and put in your password, and the hackers are able to intercept that data. So dear customers, due to issues with payment systems, please log in to the X website to refund, for a refund. And you'll be like, hey, man, what refund? Maybe I should go and also get this refund. My dear friend, the moment you start having those thoughts, you'll be attacked. If you notice, Amazon site is supposed to have the HTTPS, but if you go to that site and there's no that HTTPS, you bought something before, but they're telling you for a refund from Amazon. You're like, hey, but I bought something for Amazon. Let me go and claim my refund. Put in your password. Before you know it, someone has hijacked your site. So phishing websites are generally divided into two types. The first type, or the first time uses the idea of winning a prize. They'll tell you, guy, you have won a prize, right? Winning a prize as the bait to trick the user into providing sensitive information such as ID card number and bank card details. The second type is a fake website, like I've been telling you. It is a fake website and masquerading as a genuine online bank or electronic transaction website to steal users' information such as bank card details or payment details to online accounts. So the whole process is like phishing. Yeah, you throw out your bait, your net, giving malicious websites the name phishing websites. The phishing technique are simple. They take advantage of people's desire for cheap prices or weak anti-fraud awareness. Once a user gets duped, his or personal privacy information will be leaked and sold on or the attacker may use the bank details provided by the user on the fake website to immediately steal the user's online assets. Just a moment. All right. So we are saying phishing is a cyber security, is a cyber fraud, and it is a fraudulent attempt to obtain users' private information such as bank card account and password, often for malicious reasons by using the URL of a web page, content, or of an authenticated website as disguise, or exploiting vulnerabilities of authentic website server programs to insert dangerous HTML code into some web pages for the website. Malicious code is basically is computer code that is deliberately developed or constructed to cause threats or potential threats to a network or a system. The most common malicious code include viruses, Trojan horses, worms, and backdoors. Malicious code also is called malware, which includes adware, spyware, malicious shareware. Malwares refer to software that is installed and run on a user's computer or other devices without explicitly notifying the user or obtaining the user's consent. Defense measures against application attacks, regular vulnerability fixing. Make sure that you have your system scan for vulnerabilities. Yeah, you have vulnerability scanning, and also constantly patch your your softwares or operating systems for recent security patches. Usually what it is that the owners or the developers of these softwares, once they realize there's a vulnerability in an application, they'll go ahead and fix that vulnerability and roll out security patches for you to install. So go ahead and make sure you always install regular authentic security patches. Improving information security awareness. Constantly look out for suspicious websites and links and make sure you share it with your network or with your employees. Tell them, please, on our site would not allow you to access this site because it has been known to compromise, end users. And then also through professional equipment like firewalls, like the WAF, like the antivirus software, and so on and so forth. So regular vulnerability fixing, make sure you need to improve your vulnerability, and also improving information security awareness, tell your employees about it, and protection through professional equipment. The WAF is the short form for Web Application Firewall. It is a protection device that protects web applications by executing a series of HTTP or HTTPS security policies. As a broader device, the firewall can block unauthorized network access, web page and email viruses, and then also illegitimate applications to protect your network. The threats to data transmission and device security, interception of user communications. The National Security Agency, NSA, in the United States listened to encrypted communications between Google, including Gmail, and Yahoo users on the cloud. The NSA exploited the encryption and decryption flow of Google's front-end server to circumvent that server and directly listen to back-end plain text data, right? So they had Google's front-end encryption and decryption device. We have our public internet, and we are using this, to send ourselves emails. But NSA, the security agents, was able to exploit a vulnerability from our Google Cloud, and it was able to, listen and read those messages. And that is dangerous, and it's not allowed because we signed a privacy protection policy with Google, and they promised to keep our data safe. And that was then. So the Tumblr user information breaches, more than half of the accounts and passwords of the microblogging website called Tumblr were stolen by hackers. This is also another case study. Hackers invaded the Tumblr server in a certain way and stole information of Tumblr users. A Tumblr stated that the breach would not cause damage to users because the database information was encrypted. However, the facts showed that the user information was encrypted using weak algorithms. After obtaining the encrypted user information, the hackers were able to quickly crack a large amount of user information. Moving forward, why are information breaches so frequent? They are frequent because threats in communication processes. What security risk will occur during communications? You are having your tablet, your phone, and you're communicating via the internet. And there's so many people posting their information and related data via the internet. Even businesses are using the internet to transmit their transactions, their emails, their communications, their contracts, and so on and so forth. So transmission security risks, we may have the man in the middle attacks. Someone just goes there and they start, phishing or spoofing. And of course, data transmission not encrypted or inadequately encrypted. People will be able to make use of that vulnerability, and they will attack and steal your information. So device security risks, just a moment, excuse me briefly. Oh, where's my mouse? All right. My sincere apologies about that. So we are saying that you can use also device security risks. Sorry, there's also device security risks. Users using weak passwords or users identity not authenticated like users can. So servers with also vulnerabilities can lead to those exploitations. The man in the middle attack. The man in the middle attack, a type of indirect intrusion attacks in the man in the middle attacks. An attacker uses a variety of technical means to virtually place a control computer between two computers in the network. This controlled computer is called the man in a middle attack. The consequences of a man in a middle attack: information tampering and information theft. There's a computer here, there's a guy here communicating, but there's a man listening to their communication and, trying to see what is taking place. Information not encrypted or inadequately encrypted. If information is not encrypted, information security may be compromised, right? However, if the data is encrypted, information may also be stolen and cracked. Don't worry, we shall look at encryption in detail. We shall look at it in detail. Threat prevention suggestions: encrypt information before storage. Before you store it on your server, make sure it's encrypted. Encrypt information before transmission and use strong encryption algorithms. We shall be able to look at them in the coming few lecture slides. So, authentication attack. An attacker obtains a user's identity authentication information by certain means and uses this information to steal sensitive information or even carry out illegal attacks. It is a common form of attack. Prevention suggestions: install genuine antivirus software and use strong passwords, and also reduce the relevancy between passwords, right? This is the authentication attack. So our quiz for today: which of the following are threats to application security? Which of the following are threats to application security? Team, are we there?
Yes, we have cross-site scripting.
We have what?
Cross-site scripting, injection attack.
Okay. So just give me a minute as you're thinking about the answer, just briefly.
Just a.
All right, back. Who can share with us their answers? What do you think the other answers?
A and B.
Injection and script. This is the
Injection and script. Why not? This one happens at which category?
network.
Network. How about port scanning?
Transport.
Yeah?
Transport layer.
layer.
Transport layer. Okay, but which category of security? Remember, we looked
Network.
at either network or cyber security. Looked at application. And what else did we look at?
Device.
Device, right? All right. So
Yes.
Which of the following are device security risks?
Users using weak passwords.
User identity not.
Users using weak passwords, true.
Then user identity not
User identity.
authenticated.
And D.
And
User
D, yes, what else?
identity not authenticated.
A.
Yes, very true. User identity not authenticated. Users using a weak password, and of course also servers with vulnerabilities. All right. So that brings us to the end of today's lecture. I am going to beg to end our lecture today. We shall continue from there tomorrow. But I'm going to go ahead and share the content that I want you to read in your free time. And I'm also going to go ahead after lunch and create quizzes for you for what we have so far covered. Please kindly make sure you do those quizzes without excuses. And also discuss amongst your peers to find out answers to those quizzes. Because we will need to test ourselves with, with the knowledge, and if we can also apply the knowledge which we have acquired. So kindly make sure you do those quizzes, but also most importantly, these quizzes are there to help you make sure that